Hi, my name is Kayla, and I am here to present a video to provide a little clearer understanding to students on the Student Accessibility and Inclusive Learning Services at Arizona State University, or as we like to call it, SAILS. So what is SAILS exactly? Student Accessibility and Inclusive Learning Services is Arizona State University's unit that is responsible for facilitating access of provisions of reasonable and appropriate accommodations and services for qualified ASU students with disabilities. Eligibility. Students who believe they have a current and essential need for accommodations for a disability are responsible for both requesting accommodations and providing the qualifying documentation. Accommodations seek to provide access and opportunity to students who encounter educational barriers due to having physical, sensory, psychological, developmental, learning, neurological, or other impairments, which may be permanent, temporary, episodic, or transitory in nature. This might mean that a student has had an IEP or a 504 plan in high school and has an idea of the educational accommodations needed, encounters a new diagnosis or health concern while in college and needs new support, or becomes injured or pregnant and needs temporary support for class. Qualifying documentation. While documents are evaluated on a case-by-case basis, SAILS will accept a current diagnosis/disability verification form filled out during an evaluation by a trained and qualified, licensed or certified professional. What if I don't have recent documentation pertaining to a disability? Students are still encouraged to still register and schedule an intake appointment. During that intake appointment, SAILS staff will discuss with the student options while the student is in process of receiving documentation, but the qualifying documentation that is up to date is still required. Can ASU online students receive accommodations? Yes. If the student is qualified, then they can receive reasonable accommodations as an online student. What is a reasonable accommodation? A reasonable accommodation is an adjustment made to allow a student with a disability to have equal access to the program, course, or activity. Accommodations in higher education are typically those adjustments that allow students to demonstrate their knowledge in a way that mitigates the impact of the student's disability. What accommodations can I receive? Accommodations are determined on a case-by-case, course-by-course basis through the use of an interactive process between the student accessibility staff, and other university partners as needed to make an accommodation determination. Accommodations can be, but not limited to, timed assessments, note-taking, alternative formats, communication access, and transportation access. So how do I start the process? Start by registering with the Student Accessibility Office by completing a registration form and completing the intake process. Once a student is determined to be eligible for accommodations, the student can access and request accommodations through the online portal. Student Accessibility will review all applications we receive and send a follow-up email with instructions on setting up your initial appointment. It may take up to 48 hours to review and send the email instructions. During the initial appointment, you can expect questions about your disability and how your disability impacts you in the classroom or in other university spaces as appropriate. Questions about what kind of accommodations you have had in the past. Questions about your educational experiences so far. And it is an interactive process where your accessibility consultant asks questions to help us better understand the barriers you are facing to accessing your education in order to determine what accommodations will ensure you have access. The ability for you to ask questions, provide information, and otherwise engage with your accessibility consultant to understand how accommodations work, what to expect as it relates to your accommodations, information on other resources as appropriate, and next steps for you following the initial appointment. Things to keep in mind. Once a student has been eligible for accommodations, the student is then responsible for requesting accommodations for each course each semester. You can request accommodations 24 to 48 hours after you enroll in a course. It is best that you request as soon as possible. For example, if you enroll in a course as soon as the new semester's registration begins, within 24 to 48 hours, you are able to request your accommodations. Every student will be assigned to a specific accessibility consultant. They will see their name and contact information in their Connect portal, and students will have their email address and a link to their online bookings calendar to schedule appointments. Since everything is on a case-by-case basis, it is best for students to connect with their accessibility consultant on any questions they may have. And here's to provide an experience through one of our students who has experience with us. They said, sales is there to support you. It is never going to penalize you. When asked, how have accommodations been accessible and useful to your academic success? The student responded, it gave me options that allow me to be successful in my classes based on my knowledge rather than my struggles. I felt more confident in my studies and supported. When asked, what is some advice you can give to those who are looking for resources and accommodations through sales? The student responded, give it a chance and talk with an accessibility consultant to see what sales has to offer, and if it is the right choice for you. You can stop using it at any time or decide not to join at any time. Remember that the Student Accessibility and Inclusive Learning Services are here to help you and support you to your academic success. And here's the contact info on the Student Accessibility Office with this following information. Thank you for watching my video.